Okay, and so, oops, where'd my project go? There it is. Okay, so this is the first tutorial. So the first thing you want to do is make a project. So go ahead and click on Make a Project, and you'll get this big blank screen um, yeah, to do whatever you like with. So we're going to do this in a couple different ways. I'm going to show you something, and then I'll ask you to do it, or sometimes we'll be doing things at the same time, and I'll let you know which is which. So right now, just watch, and then I'll give you a moment to do things. So what's up top is called the navigator bar. There's a bunch of different things up here. This is for saving and finding some of your projects. But the most important thing right now is this little paint palette, which lets us create something. It brings up standard paint tools. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a car as seen from above, just like that car we saw on the previous screen. And it's going to be pointing up. And there's a reason we want to do it exactly this way. And the other thing that I'm going to warn you of is that you don't make it pretty, because if I don't warn you of that, then you're going to spend a lot of time trying to draw a very nice car that you feel proud of, and we won't have time to talk about programming. So I'm purposely drawing an ugly car so that you don't need to feel that yours is the worst one in the room. Okay, so here's my car, and you can see that's its forward direction is pointing up. I'm going to fill it with some kind of color using the paint bucket tool, because if I don't fill it, then the car really is just that outline of the car, and when I try to click on it later, if I click in the middle, I won't be clicking on it because it's hollow. And so I want to make sure to fill it because that makes things easier. And then I'm going to create, by choosing black, I'm going to create a couple of wheels. Maybe actually not a couple, but 4. And I'm going to use the paint tool, and I can choose different brush sizes. And you can see how large they're going to be. And so I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 tires. And then I'm going to keep it. Oh, I need headlights. Good, so don't do this. But before I quit, I'm going to give it some kind of headlights or something so that I know where the front of it is and where the end is. So I'll give it these 2 little lights. That's kind of cute. Okay. Yeah, I tried to do something ugly, and I think I failed. Okay. Good. So is that, so go ahead and do that. And don't draw something that's too pretty. Okay, so now we've got a car. So if you can just focus your attention up here. So notice I can pick up the car and move it around. And you can see it gives a little shadow to show that it's a separate object from the background. It's not, a painted thing on the background. And if you right-click, or if you're on a Mac, command-click, or if you're not on a Mac, you can also control-click, alt-click, alt-click, command-click, or right-click. You'll get this halo. This is called a halo of little icons, or also called handles, which surround your object. And each of these does something. And you can tell what things do by just hovering your mouse over one of the icons, and some balloon help will show up. And you'll find that Etoys is quite nice in giving you balloon help for just about everything. So, for example, this icon at the lower right will let me change the size of it. I can make it fat, I can make it skinny, I can make it tall or short. If you want to keep the proportions and change the size, you hold down Shift while you do that, and it'll keep the proportions. Okay, and there's other icons which we may learn about. You could create a copy by clicking on this green one, and now I've got a copy. You could destroy the object by clicking on X, and so I'm going to destroy my copy. And now that I've destroyed it, a trash can appears. And if I open up my trash can, you'll see that there it is, and I could pull it out. But I'm going to leave it in there. If I want to empty the trash can, I can do that. So now it's really gone. And if I don't want my trash can, I can bring up its halo, and I can click on the little X. And now it's gone. It was thrown in the trash. Which trash? I don't know. Okay. All right. So the most important icon around in the halo is this blue, this aqua icon with the eyeball. So go ahead and click on that. And something like this opens up, and this is called a viewer. This is a viewer for the object and tells us important information about our object. One thing it shows is its name up at the top, and notice it's called Sketch. Also, when we had the halo showing, the name was at the bottom, and it's called Sketch. And the first thing I'm going to do, and I want this to be a habit of everybody, is to rename your objects something that makes sense, rather than leaving them as Sketch, Sketch 1, Sketch 2, Sketch 3, because otherwise you'll find that you've got a program that says, when Sketch 3 does this with Sketch 2's variable y3, execute script, script 7. And you have no idea what it's doing. And if I see that and I'm trying to help you, I'll just throw up my hands and go, huh? So let's call it car or something other than something that makes sense. You could type it over here at the bottom of the car in the halo, or you could type it up here at the top of the viewer. Okay. So these things in the viewer window are called tiles. And notice there's a tile that says cars X, and there's one that says cars Y. And as you pick up the car and move it around, notice how those change. So any guesses as to what those might do? So yes, those are the car's X and Y coordinates. And where is 0, 0? Okay, so yes, it's at the bottom left. And you can tell that because you see the numbers go down as I head to the bottom left. I can change these numbers in a couple of ways. Well, in 3 ways. I could simply click on one of the numbers, and suppose I want my car's X to be 100, I would just type 100, and I have to hit return or the enter key. If it's red, it means I haven't done that. Okay, and so now it's at 100. The other thing I could do, or another thing I could do, is I could click on the up or down arrow next to the value of 100, and that will slowly change it, and I could hold that down and it'll change it more quickly. And the third thing I could do to change its X value is to just move the thing. Okay. Similarly for the Y. Good. All right, so there are tiles that, like cars X and cars Y, have these green and white arrows pointing, to the name of the tile. And these are property tiles that tell us something about the object. And so car's heading is another one of these. It tells us that its current heading is 0. So go ahead and type 90 in there and see what happens. And if nothing happens, it's because you didn't hit the enter key. And now the car is pointing which way? To the right. Okay, so in geometry, usually the 0 heading is, to the right, and angles increase counterclockwise. In Etoys, 0 is straight up, and angles increase going clockwise. So 90 degrees is pointing to the right. 180 degrees is pointing down. What's pointing left? 270. Also, that's negative 90, and it tends to use negative 90. But that's the same as 270, as well as 270 plus any multiple of 360, right? And then 0 again, so 180. And so there's your 4 main directions and everything in between. And so you could change this to whatever you'd like in all the same ways that you could before with the X and the Y. Okay. So I want to bring your attention now to these 3 tiles that have exclamation marks next to them. And these, unlike property tiles, are action tiles. They actually will make something happen. So this one tile here says car forward by 5. Go ahead and click on the exclamation mark and watch what happens. And if you did it, it should move forward 5 units and make a croaking noise. If you click on that. Okay, I see we've discovered the disruptive sound tools. So if you click on this exclamation mark any number of times or hold it down, the car will move forward by 5 pixels.
And for added fun, you can record your own sounds.
Yes. So, and if you click on car turn by 5, it will turn 5 degrees clockwise. Or and you can hold that down, it'll start to spin. How could we make it turn counterclockwise? Right, so I can type right in here, and I can replace that 5 with -5 and hit enter. And now when I click the exclamation mark, it will turn to the left. Okay, so this is fun only for a short while. It may be much shorter than up till now. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a script that will make this all happen automatically. So grab your car forward by whatever tile and pull it out onto the main area, which is called the world. So you're grabbing it, taking it out of the viewer window and dropping it on the world. And you get this little box around it. And this is called a scriptor or a script editor. And this is a program that we've just created. And the program's name is script1. So we're going to change that name to drive so that it has some meaning. And just like before, I can click on this exclamation mark and the car will go forward 5. But what's nice about this is that there's also a little clock that if I click on, it'll make the car repeatedly go forward by 5. So what this little clock is ticking at a certain rate, and at each tick of the clock, it executes all of the commands that are in this script box. Right now, there's only one command in the script box. But we can add another one. So grab your car turn by tile and just put it either below or above the forward by tile in the scriptor. And you'll see something like this.
You can change these in real time.
Yeah, so you can, right, so I can make changes to this. I can make my car go forward by more. I can make it turn by less. And what is it doing now? So what is my car doing? Oops.
Running in.
Right. Let me shrink it a little bit. Yes, so you might say that it's going in a circle, but in fact, what's it doing? It's going forward and turning 2, so it's really making a 180-sided polygon, but it's doing a circle. And the reason it's doing that is every tick of the clock, it goes forward a little bit and it turns a little bit. Then it does that again. It goes forward a little bit and turns a little bit. So it's describing this, circular shape. Now I can get this to look more smooth by increasing the ticking rate. And the way I do that is by clicking on the clock and holding down. And then I can choose any number of ticks per second up to whatever my processor will allow. So usually once you get to 50 or 100, larger numbers don't do anything. But that doesn't stop kids from putting incredibly large numbers in that place.
Hold down and click on it.
It will do what you ask it to do. Kids need to learn that.
Yeah, so I held down on the clock and it let me choose a ticking rate. Okay, so does everybody have a car that's moving around in a circle or circular shape? And how would I get it to go counterclockwise? All right, I can turn this into, I can make it turn by a negative amount. The other thing I could do is I could leave that, but I could have it go backwards. So now it's driving backwards, which is the same as going clockwise, but it's backing up. Okay. All right, so in a matter of just a couple of minutes, we've created a little animation. Okay, so it's very easy to do this. And you can stop the clock from ticking by clicking on the clock again, and it will say paused. Okay, everybody with me? Okay, good. So let's do something new. What we're going to do is we're going to create a wheel which will control the car. Okay, so the way we do that is we need to paint a wheel. So you can click on the Make a Painting, the paint palette, and you can draw a circle, or you could just take your pen tool and choose a big size and just click once and you'll get a dot. Or you could go down to this little tab at the bottom and there's geometric shapes that you could choose from. And if you click the circle and hold down Shift when you draw, whoa, that's a thick size.
You have a big button.
You have your big circle highlighted.
Let me undo that. Yes, so I probably want something with a thinner edge. So that's going to be my wheel. And I'm going to fill it just as we said before. We don't want it to be hollow. So I'm going to give it spokes. This will also let me tell where the front of it is, where the top of it is, because if it's going to be turning, then I'll want to know which direction is straight, is straightforward.
If you fill it with white, will it be fine? Will that be okay to click on the inside of it?
Yes, if you fill it with white, that'll be fine. You can actually fill something with no color, and that makes it hollow. So don't fill with no color unless you've got a good reason to. Okay, and when you're happy with your wheel, click Keep. And we've got a wheel.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm doing that.
Okay, now that we have a wheel, what we're going to do is bring up a viewer for it by right-clicking on it and clicking on that eyeball. And it's called Sketch 1. So I'm going to rename it Wheel. Well, I wanted to point out something about these viewers. What happened to the viewer for the car? Up at the upper right here, you should have a little picture of your car. If you click on that, it's like a tab that opens up the viewer for the car, and then you should have another one for the wheel, and that opens up the viewer for the wheel. Now, if you want to get rid of the viewer entirely, you can click on this little circle at the upper left, and it's gone, but you can always bring it back by right-clicking and clicking on the eyeball. Okay, so now I've got a wheel, and I've got a car. I'm going to start my car going, and I'm going to right-click on the wheel. And notice there's a little blue icon at the bottom left, which says Rotate. And go ahead and drag that around, and notice what happens to the wheel's heading. Okay, that changes the wheel's heading, right? Okay, and what is the car doing now?
Not the same thing it's doing.
So it's not reacting at all to the wheel, and there's no reason why it ought to. We're telling it to go forward by 2 in my case and turn by 3. So it's got no reason to know that I drew a wheel. What I'd like to do is tie the amount of the turn of the car to the wheel. And there's many different ways I can do this, and there's an interesting lesson on how cars behave if you do it the wrong way, but I'm just going to tell you what you want to do, which is to grab the tile that says wheels heading. Don't grab it by the green and white arrow so you get the whole thing. Just grab the wheels heading part, click on it, don't let go, hang on to it all the way over, and there's a number next to car turn by in your script. Place it so that the tip of your cursor is above that number, and that number should get boxed in green. And as soon as that happens, you can let go. And when you do, the tile now says car turn by wheels heading. So we replace that number to the value of wheels heading, and of course wheels heading is something that we can control. So whatever the current value of wheels heading is, in this case, negative 25, that's what the car is doing. It's turning by that amount every single tick of the clock, which is a fast turn indeed. So I can slow its curve down by changing the heading of my car. I'm sorry, by changing the heading of the wheel. And so now I can drive it and I can make it turn as I change the heading of the wheel. So get this happening, and after you get it happening, complain about it.
My car is stuck behind my box.
Yes, it requires a very light touch. So, any thoughts on how I can change it so that it doesn't require such a light touch? Yes? Divide the heading, good. So it's turning by too much. I don't want it to turn by the wheel's heading because the wheel's heading is this big number. So I can divide this heading by some amount, and the way I can do that is by bringing up some math. So if you look up here, you'll see there's a little green arrow pointing to the right, and I can click that and it turns into a mathematics expression. And if I want more terms, I can keep clicking to the right. If I've got too many terms, I can click to the left and it will collapse them. And all I really need to do is divide by some number. I can click on this plus sign and I get a choice of operators, or I could click on the up or down arrow and it gives me the next operator in the list. And I'm going to choose divides. And then I'm going to change this 1 to not 0, because that will certainly cause an error, but maybe something like 20. And then I hit enter. And so now whatever the car's wheels heading is, whatever the wheel's heading is, divided by 20 is the amount that the car will turn by. So now if I started going, it's nowhere near as sensitive. And you can play with that number 20 until it has the right feel. And that might depend on how far you're going at each step and how big your car is. 15 is the right number. Okay. It has been decided that
And also,
15.
you can remember that if you get your halo, you can always change the size of both your car and your steering wheel. So if you don't like the size of what they are on your screen, you can always use the little lower right to change their size.
You can also pull the rotator away from the wheel so that more motion translates into less rotation.
That's a good point. So pull the rotator far away from the wheel, and so now you have to go further in order to make a change, and make the same change. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the first tutorial. What you should have is a script that looks like this, and a car and a wheel.